The U.S. telling Americans to leave the Kabul airport immediately as the British government warns of a terror threat that could happen within hours.
Yeah, where do they go, though? That's the problem. Up to 1,500 Americans, we ballpark everything. There's no reason to get down to actual names, stranded in Afghanistan now, just 5 days into the U.S. chose to withdraw.
This photograph is jaw-dropping. It shows a plane, as you can see there. Looks like it's leaving Kabul nearly empty, flying evacuees to the country of, no kidding, Uganda. Let's get straight to Kitty Logan. She is live with the very latest. So, Kitty, it sounds like they're saying get away from the airport because there's a threat at 3 different gates of car bombs.
That's right. This is a very specific threat coming from several Western governments. But despite that, there are still crowds of thousands of desperate people at the airport in Kabul. Another 18,000 were evacuated yesterday by the US, and that effort continues. The American government saying, as we heard there, that its own citizens still have priority. But this latest alert makes that process all the more risky and more urgent.
Our highest priority right now is evacuating American citizens, evacuating Afghans who worked with us, and Afghans who are at risk, with a priority around women and children. Each day and night, we continue to evacuate thousands of people, understanding that it is risky for them to be there. It is a dangerous and difficult mission, but it must be seen through, and we intend to see it through as best as we can.
Now, the next problem is it is going to take time to draw down those thousands of troops, and all that is going to slow down the evacuation process too. An attack could also put a stop to all this. The background to this, well, the Taliban released thousands of prisoners when they took Kabul. Those extremists are amongst them. They may want to take the opportunity to target US and other Western troops as they leave. The Taliban has denied there's an imminent attack, but here in the UK, the government is backing the warning of a possible terrorist attack, saying that troops on the ground will do all they can to try to keep people safe. Back to you guys.
All right, Kitty, thank you very much. So, Brian, I think you mentioned the number a minute ago. There was some confusion yesterday.
Mixed messages, yeah.
Yeah. How many people are there? Tony Blinken said over 4,000. We're talking about Americans. And then they tried to clean that up and they said 1,500. On the front page of the New York Times today, it illustrates so large a problem this is and how daunting it is, because that's the cover of the New York Post. We're going to talk about that in a moment. There are, we had heard last week there could be up to 88,000 people who worked for the federal government in Afghanistan, translators and things like that. Well, now, according to the New York Times, it could be 250,000 who are not evacuated and will not be evacuated until past the deadline. And that number could actually be 1 million. So no wonder the administration's probably behind the scenes freaking out, because it's like, there is no way we could get 250,000 or 1 million people out by midnight Tuesday.
Yeah, Tom Cotton says they're spinning these numbers, and he said come Tuesday, which is August 31st, the deadline, he said if there are Americans that remain there, he predicts that the administration will say, well, that's because they wanted to stay.
Well, think about this. How do we make sure that we get even the last flight, even if we do have everybody in the last flight, how can we secure the place? The Turks were supposed to secure the airport. They're Islamic. They're a member of NATO. Last night, they left. They're beginning to leave in great numbers. They're not even sticking around. So everybody else is picking up the pace. They're going outside the wire, outside the airport to pick people up. When you talk about confusion, get this. The U.S. evacuated 82,300 people. You know how many are Americans? They're roughly 4,500, which means they don't know at all exactly. You really think these even numbers are accurate? Tony Blinken yesterday says we have between 500 and 1,500 who need to be evacuated. Really? And then, as Steve mentioned, a briefer came out and says 4,100 are still in Afghanistan. But then Jen Psaki came out and says 11,000 self-identified Americans, they're the best, are in Afghanistan.
So which numbers do we believe?
Which number do we believe? How about this? They have no idea. And then you get an indication from the Secretary of State that he's kind of blaming the Americans. We've been telling him how dangerous Afghanistan is. And meanwhile, we have 24 students from California who Congressman Issa, with his military background and former Armed Forces Committee member, is using all those close contacts to try to get them out. But it is hell on earth inside. When you heard the reports from the Sioux congressmen, those veterans that went in and found out for themselves how bad this is, whatever you think it is, it's worse. And then today's New York Post, you see what it is like on the ground. As a former Army Ranger, went in, went out, and described it.
He's a volunteer rescuer in Afghanistan, and he describes all the chaos at the Kabul airport. Look at the front cover of the New York Post. It says, a death metal show with one exit, and the place is on fire. If you read the article, he says, it's more like trying to pick up someone who doesn't speak your language out of a crowd at a effing death metal concert at Madison Square Garden, and it's at triple capacity, and only one door is open, and the place is on fire.
Right, and so he was at the Hamid Karzai International Airport. Apparently, you should read it. It's so compelling. Of the eyewitness accounts, it is so compelling. It exactly shows you exactly what is going on there. And he talks about how it sounds like he was trying to escort two people of interest onto one of those flights. And so he gets to the Americans and he says, okay, they don't have visas. They've applied for them. Just put them on the flight. He found out later that they were rejected because they did not have the paperwork. And next thing you know, what happens? They send these two people of interest outside the gate. So the people he had risked his life to try to get on a plane, the U.S. government said, sorry, not going to be able to do it. He also writes, I have been deployed 15 times, and this is the worst living and working conditions I've seen for U.S. troops. I'm a little used to this kind of work, unlike the many young Marines and other service members who are having to sentence these Afghans. They tell somebody, hey, you can't come in. And it's like telling the person he's probably going to die.
Wow.
These kids, the Marines and the soldiers, are worn the F out.
Right, and they've
just would know because he was there.
So there was 2,200 in country when we decided to pull out of country, and then we put in 5,800. As of 2 days ago, we're starting to get our Marines and our Army officers out of there. So they're exhausted in just a week. Can you imagine over the next 5 days, we're not going to be able to get our people out. And Democratic congressmen, first-termers, Elisa Slotkin and Mikey Sherrill, a former U.S. naval pilot, and with Slotkin's case, she's a former Assistant Secretary of Defense. They were at a signing ceremony yesterday with President Biden, and they said, listen, we need to speak to you. He said, okay. He goes, we cannot get these people out. This deadline has to be pushed back. He said he was very firm, very engaged, and he was listening to us, but he's not going to change his mind. The question is, what is it going to take for this disengaged president who is clueless and disinterested to what's happening on the ground to back up? It's almost we're hostage to his indifference, and this just can't stand. Who in that administration is responsible enough to do the right thing?
The U.S. Embassy sent a security alert to all the folks that are Americans that are still trapped in Afghanistan, and they gave them this advice. Be aware of your surroundings at all times, especially in large crowds. This was after these security threats. Follow the instructions of local authorities. Have a contingency plan for emergencies. Monitor your local media for breaking events. Enroll in the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program to receive alerts for emergencies, and follow the Department of State on Facebook and Twitter. And in addition to that, we're learning this morning that there are more than 20 students, 16 parents or teachers that are stranded there in Afghanistan, and they are from a school district out in California, the Cajun Valley Union School District. They went over there for a vacation, a summer vacation, and the superintendent, superintendent is now meeting with Darrell Issa to try to get them home.
Right, and we are going to have somebody from the school district on with us in the next hour of Fox and Friends. I'm sure you saw last night, New York Times talked to the Taliban spokesman about what are your plans, how are you going to get this government started. He's the same guy who said there's no proof that Osama bin Laden was in on 9/11, which is extraordinary.
Which is, someone should tell bin Laden because he took responsibility.
He did a number of times. Anyway, he said that the Taliban will allow women to return to school and to work, but they've got to have a head covering. He also said that music will be banned, but women need to take male chaperones on trips that take several days. Now, clearly, that's one of the reasons why the international community is holding up all the money back to Afghanistan, women's rights. And what is going to happen to, girls used to not be allowed to go to school. Our vice president, who is in Vietnam, donating 1 million doses of COVID vaccine, was asked about women's rights in Afghanistan. Give a very vague answer, very broad answer. Here's what she said just moments ago.
What will the administration do to support women who are not permitted to leave Afghanistan?
We have said before, and I will say again, that we are going to do what we are able to do in terms of the evacuation process. But in addition to that, what we are able to do politically and diplomatically to secure and to continue to work on the protection of women and children in that region, including working with our allies. And it is no secret that many of our allies are prepared to join with us in ensuring that we keep a focus on that issue in that region and do everything that we can, and to do it together as a global community.
Well, it's going to be tough, though, because many of our allies have already left. Poland and Belgium ended their evacuation. It sounds like Turkey's next, and Germany probably tomorrow.
There's an Afghan news anchor, female, and she said she is extremely worried about women's rights now in Afghanistan. She was on Fox and Friends first earlier. Watch.
Before the Taliban comes, we had a normal life and going to office, everything was normal. Now we don't have any rights. The women who are in Afghanistan, they don't have any rights. Every woman have this fear that the Taliban will target them, the Taliban will kill them because of that the Taliban doesn't want women work, especially in TV.
And by the way, and part of that interview that Steve referred to about the Afghanistan representative talking about the future, the good news is it's going to make AOC feel great. They're going to focus on climate change and world security. So knowing that the Taliban's working towards climate change is really heartening to me. So now I know this whole mission's been worth it. Also, what about the president's snarky answer to the NBC reporter Peter Alexander, who said, "What are you going to do to get all the Americans out?" He said, "Oh, you'll be the first to know. I'll let you know." And then he giggles. Just shows how unbelievably callous and stubborn this guy is, and isolated. He's focusing on working the phones on some reconciliation package we don't need. He does not understand this is Vietnam to the 10th power, and it's on his resume, and the American people know it. How else can you explain a 58% approval going down to 41%? And that's Suffolk USA Today, who is extremely kind to the Democrats.
And getting back to the women's rights issue, there was a medic on one of the planes, one of the C-17s. There were two actually that helped deliver a baby, a mother. They helped rescue the mother. Then she delivered a baby girl, and she named the baby Reach. That's at least being reported,
right,
which is the aircraft's call sign. But the lady, the neonatal nurse that was on the plane that helped deliver the baby, was on Fox and Friends first earlier, and she said it was so rewarding. It was one of the highlights of her career to rescue a mother, and then she delivers a baby girl, knowing that she is pulling them out of the Sharia law and the Taliban.
Out of all of that turmoil and all that awfulness, a little miracle that the baby is born. Apparently, and I did not realize this, but they named her Reach because those C-17 cargo planes, the code names are Reach and then a number. So it was Reach 17, but Reach 17 is going to be a tough name for a little girl. So instead, Reach was born on board a C-17.
That's something Frank Zappa might have named his kids, but this is just more
Reach
serious.
Unit.
Right, as opposed to Space Unit.
Moon Unit.
That's true.
All right.
Maybe their kids will be Space Unit.
14 minutes after the top of the hour on this very...
To the COVID count that went unacknowledged by Andrew Cuomo. New York now reporting nearly 55,400 people died of COVID. That's up from about 43,000 Cuomo reported as of Monday. The count reported by Cuomo included deaths from only certain facilities, but it excluded people who died at home, in hospice, in prisons, or at state-run homes for people with disabilities. The CDC and the USDA are investigating 2 salmonella outbreaks linked to Italian-style meats. The outbreaks span across 17 states with 36 illnesses and 12 hospitalizations reported. In a statement, the CDC says, quote, "Until we identify which Italian-style meats are making people sick, heat all Italian-style meats to an internal temperature of 165 degrees or until steaming hot before eating if you are at higher risk." That is Look Your Headlines. I bet some will choose just not to eat that for now.
I mean, who's going to heat up a salami?
That's going in the trash. Right.
There goes the charcuterie board.
Right.
One day we have to answer the question, what is salami? Right? I mean, how do you make it? Whose idea was it?
Give me your best attempt, Brian.
Right? Okay.
Jillian, thank you. Meanwhile, this is one of the most disturbing stories this summer. a family vacation. They go down to Miami to visit friends. That young father, 21 years old, is shot and killed in Miami Beach, in South Beach, while protecting his child.
Yeah, looks like the killer high on mushrooms. Ashley Strohmeyer joins us now with the tragic details.
Yeah, 21-year-old Dustin Wakefield and his family were visiting from Colorado, and they were eating at a Miami Beach cafe on the city's famous Ocean Drive. Well, that's when a man approached and pointed a gun at his 1-year-old son. Wakefield pleaded with the gunman not to shoot, reportedly saying, quote, "He's only a boy." Wakefield was then tragically shot dead, shielding his child. Afterwards, the suspect, Tamarius Davis, was caught on camera appearing to dance at the scene of the shooting, still holding that gun. And even more chilling, listen to what this witness had to say about the shooter's demeanor as he opened fire.
And what's so strange is the guy that was shooting, they said he was smiling and laughing the whole time that he was shooting the guy.
Davis was quickly arrested in a nearby alleyway. Prosecutors say Davis admitted to being high on mushrooms during the shooting and targeting Wakefield at random. And just yesterday, he appeared in court, reportedly smiling. A judge then denied bond.
No bond. You're being held with no bond. You shot and killed somebody in cold blood.
Davis is facing second-degree murder and attempted second-degree murder charges. Back to you guys.
All right, and when police arrested him, Ashley, they said that he was in that alleyway telling them, "I did it, I did it." It's awful. So he's admitted it.
He said, thank you, Ashley.
Thanks,
he
Ashley.
said, I'm on mushrooms, and they made me feel empowered, were his words. But, you know, there you are. This is what we've been talking about all summer. It's the scary randomness of this. This guy was just, Tamarius Davis was just walking by, saw this couple right there, and, you know, there he is, it looks like dancing over him. The guy with Dustin Wakefield, 21 years old, was there with his wife and baby. A terrible story, what happened down there. He met his wife in Castle Rock, Colorado, when they both worked at the Crave Real Burgers. He had that as a high school job, and they've been together ever since. They had a baby. They were down there visiting people, and then this happens to them.
His mom was fighting back tears and said he was the best dad.
Best dad ever.
21 years old. And we all do this. That's what's scary. We all go to restaurants and sit outside with our families. Some random guy can come up or person can come up and shoot you in cold blood like that. He's protecting his son.
And everybody's got to eat outside during COVID.
It's true.
People are more comfortable like that. And this guy, terrible.
Yeah,
I'm glad the judge denied bail.
Me too.
Second-degree murder charge. I don't know how this guy ever gets out again. Maybe if he goes to California, he'll be out in a month. That's when the gunman just said, "That's my son," and they said, "Okay, basically, I'll shoot you," and thinks it's hysterical. Evidently, a great guy, 21 years old. So going there on vacation in Miami, you think you're totally secure in the middle of the day, and you're not. Just
Meanwhile,
terrible.
after Kamala Harris is leaving Vietnam, she's going to make a stop in California. She's going to be in the Bay Area. She's helping Gavin Newsom because his recall election is on September 14th, just shy of 3 weeks from now. And there's going to be this car rally. You have to stay in your car.
Ugh.
You can't even get out, but they're still requiring you to either show that you had the vaccine or you have to have a negative test and you have to wear masks.
Yeah.
Look at these, a mask outdoors.
A mask outdoors, that's right. The Eventbrite information goes like this. Security and health protocols will be in place. Make sure you're on time. Must prove proof of vaccine or negative test within 72 hours for the driver and all the people in the car. Please bring a mask. Now, here's the thing. So she's heading there. Joe Biden, through Jen Psaki yesterday, it was revealed he's going to go out there. So if the president and vice president are both going to be there, that signals that Democrats are freaking out. He could actually lose it, and he could lose it if he loses. If enough people say yes to the question. Right. The number 2 person on the ballot, the current frontrunner, is Larry Elder, the guy who we have on all the time.
It's the second time there's going to be a recall in the last 20 years. It's going to happen on September 24th. It's a mail-in ballot. And if you look at some of the interviews that Gavin Newsom's given, he is so nervous. This guy got elected with 62% of the vote. But when homelessness went rampant, when the draconian pandemic laws went into play, when you see the crime go through the roof, when you see the fires go out of control, when you see the fact that taxes are forcing everyone out of that state, Why would this guy possibly keep his job? And in a Democrat-controlled state, this could very well be the future for the Democratic Party. If they lose this governor's mansion, that is a message to Joe Biden. And all these governors and these mayors in these Democratic cities, the American people, not party politics, the American people have seen what you're presenting and are sickened by it.
Well, there's a story today that apparently they are freaking out at the governor's mansion in Sacramento. And in fact, Newsom is enlisting the help of Steven Spielberg and Reed Hastings, the guy who runs Netflix, to try to rally Democrats and rally Hollywood.
I don't know if it'll work.
Well, we'll find out.
And Larry Elder says, bring on Joe Biden. I hope Joe Biden comes because his approval rating is so low right now because of what's happening in Afghanistan. Listen to Larry Elder.
Biden's popularity has never been lower. I think I just read it's at 41% because of the Afghanistan debacle. The only major public figure that I know of who's praised him has been Gavin Newsom. So let Joe Biden come out here and praise the wonderful job Gavin Newsom has done on crime, on homelessness, on the rise of gas taxes, on the fact that people are leaving California for the very first time, and on the way he slammed this state down, ignoring science in the most severe way compared to all the other 49 states. Let Joe Biden defend that record. I welcome that. And maybe Joe Biden can encourage Gavin Newsom to debate me.
That would be interesting because Laura Ingraham has really done a great job highlighting the terrible condition of the major cities, the iconic cities in California, San Francisco 2 days ago, and Los Angeles last night. And you look at Larry Elder, they're saying crazy things in the LA Times, that he's the black face of white supremacy. This guy was born in South Central. He's been a transparent public figure for about 30 years, and now he's going to welcome the opportunity to do something that, if he's able to be successful, that Governor Schwarzenegger couldn't do. And he believes he can work with Democrats in order to get this city on the right track. And first things first will be crime. And when Gavin Newsom has a speech, he always says he welcomes the homelessness, homeless people from other states.
If you're homeless
on
out
what
there, come to
planet are you
California,
on?
he said.
Yeah, who doesn't want to go to California? So Kamala Harris is heading to California from Vietnam. There's one embarrassing note regarding her trip that the White House is going to have to figure out how to answer it to, and that is, remember, it was about 2 days ago that her flight was delayed by 3 hours because they suspected Havana syndrome. So they were going to delay 3 hours. Well, the Chinese found out about it. They found out she was going to go and donate 1 million doses of COVID vaccine to the Chinese, or rather to the Vietnamese. And so the Chinese sent their emissary in to talk to the same person and said, yeah, we understand the vice president is going to donate you 1 million vaccine doses. We're going to give you 2 million. So the Chinese heard about it and they capitalized it. And now the White House is going, they beat us again.
Yeah, the bad news is the Chinese vaccine barely works. So thanks a lot for the useless concoction that you're dropping off. Yeah, we're about to give them 1 million.
Take our vaccine. If you have the choice, our vaccine is a lot better.
Yeah, or you can grab the Russian Sputnik. That's really effective. Even Vladimir Putin won't take it.
The other bit of COVID vaccine news is it sounds like they're going to start suggesting that people get a booster here in the United States every 6 months.
Right.
Don't know how long, but every 6 months. Not 8 months, as we're currently being suggested, but twice a year. Boosters.
All right. It is 6:30 here on the East Coast, and coming up,
University of Notre Dame is defending its leprechaun mascot after it was labeled offensive. The blog Quality Logo Products listed the Fighting Irish in the top 4 of their most offensive college mascots. Notre Dame releasing a statement saying, quote, there is no comparison between Notre Dame's nickname and mascot and the Indian and Warrior names and mascots used by other institutions, such as the NFL team formerly known as the Redskins. Coming up, former Notre Dame head football coach Lou Holtz will join us to react. I'm sure he'll have a thing or two to say about that, Brian.
Right, and I'm sure the Leprechaun Union will have a statement a little bit later in the show. Thanks so much, Jillian. Meanwhile, this serious story. Growing tensions outside Kabul International Airport as U.S. soldiers and Marines race against time to evacuate Americans in an impossible Tuesday deadline. Our next guest began working as an interpreter for the U.S. coalition forces in 2012, just 1 year after she was kidnapped and tortured by the Taliban. She escaped Afghanistan just hours before the country fell to the terror group. That was back on August 15th. Now she's fighting to get her family to safety. Zizi joins us now. Zizi, glad you're okay. Congressman Emanuel Cleaver was a big help to you, right?
Yes, he is.
How did he help you?
They helped me with the process because I was trying to leave Afghanistan, but the SIV process is very long process. Emmanuel Cleaver and his guy, the one he's working for him, his name is Carl Wilkins. He supported me a lot with the SIV process.
So now you're worried about your family, your brother specifically. What is your brother doing to get out, and how is he threatened because you got out?
Yes, my brother, while I was supporting coalition forces, he was receiving the threats from the Taliban to return your sister to us. But my brother never gave up, and he was supporting me for my job to support the coalition forces as a linguist. And still, he's receiving those threats. Right now, he's hiding at home, and I'm worried about them.
Yeah, of course. Yesterday, he tried to make his way to the airport. What happened?
Yes, yesterday my family and my brother, they were trying to go to the airport, but there was lots of Taliban checkpoints that they couldn't make it to the airport, and he got beat up. Then they go back home.
So what happens if he can't get out? What if he can't get out by the 31st?
So if the coalition forces get out of 31st, that's lots of dangerous for my family and for my brother over there, because there is no safety, there is no hopes in Afghanistan right now.
When you were working for the coalition forces, did you ever think you would see this day?
Excuse me?
When you were working for the coalition forces, did you ever think you'd see a time when the Taliban would be in control?
No, I never think of that the Taliban will take a control of Afghanistan. I never thought And
how do you feel now?
I'm feeling very happy because I'm in a peaceful country, and I'm feeling safe right now, and I'm very happy here.
Do you feel like the Americans, coalition forces, let you down?
No, the Americans, coalition forces never let me down, because while I was there, the coalition forces helped me a lot, and I was helping them as a linguist, and they were keeping me safe inside the base.
Right, but unfortunately, to survive, you had to leave because we decided to leave. Zizi, thanks for what you did for this country. We're going to follow this story. We want to make sure your family gets out because time is not on our side.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Meanwhile, coming up straight ahead, an American dad shares the painful journey of an adopted child from Afghanistan amid the crisis unfolding right now. The light at the end of the 5-year.
University of Notre Dame is defending its leprechaun mascot after it was labeled offensive. The blog Quality Logo Products listed the Fighting Irish in the top 4 of their most offensive college mascots. Notre Dame releasing a statement saying, quote, "There is no comparison between Notre Dame's nickname and mascot and the Indian and Warrior names and mascots used by other institutions, such as the NFL team formerly known as the Redskins." Coming up, former Notre Dame head football coach Lou Holtz will join us to react. I'm sure he'll have a thing or two to say about that, Brian.
Right, and I'm sure the Leprechaun Union will have a statement a little bit later in the show. Thanks so much, Jillian. Meanwhile, this serious story. Growing tensions outside Kabul International Airport as U.S. soldiers and Marines race against time to evacuate Americans in an impossible Tuesday deadline. Our next guest began working as an interpreter for the U.S. coalition forces in 2012, just 1 year after she was kidnapped and tortured by the Taliban. She escaped Afghanistan just hours before the country fell to the terror group. That was back on August 15th. Now she's fighting to get her family to safety. Zizi joins us now. Zizi, glad you're okay. Congressman Emmanuel Cleaver was a big help to you, right?
Yes, he is.
How did he help you?
They helped me with the process because I was trying to leave Afghanistan, but the SIV process is very long process. Emmanuel Cleaver and his guy, the one he's working for him, his name is Carl Wilkins. He supported me a lot with the SIV process.
So now you're worried about your family, your brother specifically. What is your brother doing to get out, and how is he threatened because you got out?
Yes, my brother, while I was supporting coalition forces, he was receiving the threats from the Taliban to return your sister to us. But my brother never gave up, and he was supporting me for my job to support the coalition forces as a linguist. And still, he's receiving those threats. Right now, he's hiding at home, and I'm worried about them.
Yeah, of course. Yesterday, he tried to make his way to the airport. What happened?
Yes, yesterday my family and my brother, they were trying to go to the airport, but there was lots of Taliban checkpoints that they couldn't make it to the airport, and he got beat up. Then they go back home.
So what happens if he can't get out? What if he can't get out by the 31st?
So if the coalition forces get out of 31st, that's lots of dangerous for my family and for my brother over there, because there is no safety, there is no hopes in Afghanistan right now.
When you were working for the coalition forces, did you ever think you would see this day?
Excuse me?
When you were working for the coalition forces, did you ever think you'd see a time when the Taliban would be in control?
No, I never think of that the Taliban will take a control of Afghanistan. I never thought that.
And how do you feel now?
I'm feeling very happy because I'm in a peaceful country, and I'm feeling safe right now, and I'm very happy here.
Do you feel like the Americans, coalition forces, let you down?
And no, the Americans, coalition forces never let me down, because while I was there, the coalition forces helped me a lot, and I was helping them as a linguist, and they were keeping me safe inside the base.
Right, but unfortunately, to survive, you had to leave because we decided to leave. Zizi, thanks for what you did for this country. We're going to follow this story. We want to make sure your family gets out because time is not on our side.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Meanwhile, coming up straight ahead, an American dad shares the painful journey of an adopted child from Afghanistan amid the crisis unfolding right now. The light at the end of the 5-year